Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. We finished the first week of deadline for bills that we were trying to get off the floor, Senate bills to get over to the House. We have one more week. That will be next week. Not sure. I think we're at about, I think the average would be around 60 a day to make sure we got all of them done, and that would be if we heard all of them. So, and I don't know if that will happen, but I anticipate we'll have some long days next week, maybe into the evening. With that, I'm opening it up for questions.
Can you talk about that Darcy vote on automobiles? The caucus was concerned.
That bill, it's. I think that's a perfect example of what having a decision that has to be made. That's a tough decision because there's both sides have a really valid point. On the one hand, it was to be able to tax vehicles, and if you had a trade-in, the tax would be after you deducted the value of the trade-in. The problem is that it's $11 million in revenue we're losing, and 16 million next year. So it's 26 million. That's a problem because we have a flat budget, so we just gave back 26 million. The good news for taxpayers is it's if you're buying a vehicle, you're going to pay less sales tax. So I think that we could have cut the baby in half. I think that we could have stair-stepped it and maybe not had it all just this year and next year, but that wasn't an idea that was entertained. So we felt like that in this political, economic environment we're in right now, with a flat budget, it wasn't feasible to give away another 26 billion.
Can you talk about at all whether you think there is an appetite among the legislature to allow commercial gaming into the state?
I can't speak for the entire legislature. I can't even speak for the entire Senate. But I can tell you that in my caucus, we believe that what we have works very, very well. We believe that the tribal nations, no problem. We believe the tribal nations have been amazing partners. I mean, they're the second largest employer in the state. They just bring so much to the table, and I don't see how the state benefits from bringing any type of out-of-state gaming into the state. I don't see the benefit.
Market?
I wouldn't say it's oversaturated.
No.
I believe that the tribes have worked together and worked well with the state up to this point, and it's been regulated to the point, and there's been a long-term plan that's been used, and I think it's been very beneficial to the state.
I guess what I'm saying is, from a commercial operator standpoint, coming into a market where there's already in excess of 130 gaming operations.
If I was an out-of-state gaming operator, I would look at not only the number, but just the longevity of what we have. I mean, the entire industry is up and running and has been for years, and it's being run very well. So why would you move into a market that is already dominated by a large group that are doing a good job of running it?
Governor said the healthcare authority is going to submit to the feds tomorrow his plans to expand Medicaid. Not technically his plans. They don't have a funding mechanism yet, but it seems clear he's moving forward on Medicaid expansion. What do you think?
I'm going to be interested to see the governor also said that he's been visiting with the House and Senate leadership and also the hospital associations. And I will be very interested to see what the new plan is. Last week, they were in negotiations. The plan last week was to SHOP was going to be affected. The hospital associations were going to have to come up with $75 million by July. So I'll be interested to see what this new plan looks like.
Do you think it's reckless at all that he's moving forward when there is no funding structure in place yet? Well,
there may be a funding structure that they're discussing, so that's why I'm going to be interested to see what we've got.
They're not including you in those discussions?
We honestly just came off the floor, and Senator Thompson and I have visited in the past, and what information he could give me, he has. We just haven't had an opportunity to visit. But no, we have not been contacted by the governor's office at all.
And if you had a preference on how all of this was funded, it sounded like, I think last week you said the savings, state savings and reserves. Is Is that still the case?
The money's still there. I mean, we have over $850 million in the rainy day fund. We've got $200 million in the revenue stabilization fund. Both of those are to be used when we need the money, and this is a time we need it. Why would we put an increase in SHOP on the hospitals, which is just going to be passed along to the patients, if they could even get it done in such a short period of time when we've got money in savings? They could get us through what we consider a rainy day event, and that's getting health care, Medicaid expansion up and running.
Why do you think the governor isn't meeting with your caucus? I mean, is this not a bipartisan plan?
We believe it to be a bipartisan plan. I mean, we believe it should be a bipartisan plan, I should say. And I don't know.
Do you have any concerns? I mean, like, I've looked at other states that have expanded Medicaid, and typically they take a lot longer to do it, you know, maybe up to a year, maybe more than a year. And he wants to do it by this summer. That seems very quick. But at the same time, I guess you cover people sooner rather than later. So
Yeah.
any thoughts on the timeline? Or?
Well, I believe the timeline's probably tied to the state question. And so I think that's the sense of urgency that we're seeing is tied to the state question. And let me correct something I said just a second ago. I actually have met with the Secretary of State Rogers, and this it wasn't specifically about Medicaid expansion, but while we were together visiting about a lot of different things, it did come up briefly.
The governor's going to file that amendment tomorrow announcing he's planning to expand Medicaid. Do you think that requires a vote of the legislature before he can do that?
I didn't understand.
He's filing the amendment
Right.
announcing just his intention to expand Medicaid. Do you think that requires a vote of the legislature to expand Medicaid?
We're going to have to see what his plan is and what his proposal is. The revenue issue is definitely going to have to be something the House and the Senate weigh in on. There's no question on how we're going to pay for it. That needs to be a decision of the legislature.
But he can unilaterally decide to expand Medicaid on his own.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Do you have any concerns about his plan and that being announced tomorrow, possibly competing or conflicting with the state question, which would likely be on in November?
It's going to depend on what his plan is and what it says. And to your question about the November ballot, we don't know when that's going to be set. I mean, the governor can set state state questions on any ballot. Primary, if there's a runoff, he could call a special, or November. So we don't know yet when the governor's going to put it on the ballot.